Days blurred into a surreal landscape of aftershocks, rescue efforts, and the pervasive scent of dust and broken concrete. His apartment building, deemed structurally unsound, was quickly condemned. Amidst the widespread destruction and loss of life, one more death, a woman in a dilapidated flat, was insignificant. The authorities, overwhelmed by the scale of the disaster, wouldn't scrutinize every casualty. The earthquake had swallowed his crime whole, burying it beneath tons of rubble and the collective trauma of the city. He found himself in a makeshift shelter surrounded by dazed and grieving survivors. He offered no comfort, sought none. He was an anomaly, a murderer masquerading as a victim of a natural catastrophe. As the initial shock began to wear off and a semblance of order started to emerge, a disquieting thought took root in Charlie's mind. He had committed a heinous act, and the earth itself had intervened, shielding him from the consequences. There had been no witnesses, no struggle that anyone might have heard over their usual arguments. Now there was only the crushing weight of the earthquake's destruction to explain Sally's death. He looked at his hands. They had taken a life and he had walked away. Not through his own cunning or planning, but by the sheer brutal randomness of nature. A chilling question began to form in the desolate landscape of his mind. Had this act of violence, followed by such an improbable escape, somehow altered him? Had the universe, in its chaotic indifference, granted him a twisted form of absolution? He watched a rescue worker carefully sift through the debris of a collapsed building, searching for survivors. The fragility of life, so brutally demonstrated by the earthquake, now seemed intertwined with his own dark secret. If Mother Nature could so easily erase a life and conceal a crime, what was to stop him from doing it again? The thought was a cold seed of terror, planting itself in the fertile ground of his emptiness. He didn't know the answer, and that uncertainty was more terrifying than the act itself. The earth had shaken, and he had gotten away with murder. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the whispers of a question he dared not answer. Will he kill again? The aftershocks continued, tremors that mirrored the unease settling within Charlie. He moved through the city like a ghost, a shadow amongst the living, the weight of his secret, a constant suffocating presence. The earthquake had become a perverse accomplice, its destructive power a shroud that concealed his crime. He found himself drawn to the edges of the disaster zone, to the collapsed buildings that had once been homes to the places where lives had been abruptly extinguished. He watched the rescue workers, their faces grim and determined, pull bodies from the rubble. Each recovered corpse was a stark reminder of Sally, her lifeless form amidst the wreckage of their flat. He started having nightmares. He'd relive the moment, the feel of the knife in his hand, the dark, viscous flow of her blood. Then the dream would shift and the earthquake would return, swallowing him whole, the earth opening up to claim him as its own. He'd wake up in a cold sweat, his heart pounding, the question echoing in his mind, will I kill again? The city began to rebuild. The rubble was cleared, the streets were repaired, and new structures rose from the devastation. Life, in its relentless way, moved on, but Charlie remained trapped in the aftermath, a prisoner of his own actions and the earthquake's cruel intervention. He tried to return to some semblance of normalcy. He found a temporary job helping with the clean-up efforts, the physical labor, a futile attempt to exhaust the demons that haunted him. He avoided people, afraid that they would somehow see the darkness within him, the secret he carried like a festering wound. One evening, weeks after the earthquake, he found himself walking past the site of his former flat. The building was gone, replaced by a vacant lot, a raw scar on the landscape. He stood there, staring at the empty space, and a strange sense of detachment washed over him. It was as if that part of his life, the life he had shared with Sally, had been completely erased, wiped clean by the earthquake's destructive power. He thought about Sally, not with anger or resentment, but with a hollow indifference. The venomous words, the constant belittling, the suffocating misery of their existence. It all seemed distant, unreal, like a scene from a movie he had once watched. And then he thought about the knife, the feel of it in his hand, the ease with which he had ended her life. He remembered the nothingness, the chilling absence of emotion that had consumed him in those moments. The question resurfaced, sharper, more insistent than ever. Will I kill again? This time he didn't recoil from it. He didn't try to push it away. He let it linger, examining it with a morbid curiosity. He realized that the earthquake hadn't absolved him. It hadn't made him a different person. The capacity for violence, the darkness that had erupted that night was still there, dormant but not extinguished. He looked up at the sky, the stars obscured by the city's lingering haze. The earth had shaken, and he had gotten away with murder, not because of some grand design, but because of chaos. Pure and simple, and that chaos, he understood with a chilling clarity, was always present, lurking beneath the surface of the seemingly ordered world. He turned and walked away from the vacant lot, the question hanging heavy in the air. He didn't know if he would kill again, but he knew, with a certainty that settled like a cold stone in his stomach, that he could. And that knowledge was a burden he would carry for the rest of his days, a constant reminder of the darkness that resided within him and the terrifying indifference of the world around him.